Hi, in this video I want to show you some things to keep in mind when using rubrics that are associated with your competency structure. Just a few interesting things and things you will want to look out for. First, I want to show you how to view statistics on your rubric. It's pretty easy. You just go to View Statistics and then click on Actions. And then here you can see some overall statistics, the percent of students that achieved which level. And then under Criteria Statistics, you can see more specific breakdowns by criteria and level. And then under Individual, you have your students, and then you can see which level each student achieved. So that's kind of interesting to note and possibly helpful to you. And then the next thing I want to talk to you about is these icons. This link means my rubric is associated within my competency structure, but no, I haven't graded any student work with it yet. So it's still editable. I can still edit the properties and the levels for this rubric if I want to. Same with this one, and you see this doesn't have a link. That means it's not linked up to an activity yet within my competency structure. So both these are editable. The lock means I can't edit the levels anymore, only the properties. So if I click on that, I have the properties tab but not the levels. So before you make an association in a competency structure and add your rubric, make sure that you have it exactly the way you want it, because you really can't make changes after unless you want to reassess all of your students again with the new rubric, and I'll show you what that means. Now don't worry, your grades will still be saved, but your competency data will need to be updated. There's a difference. So if we go to grades, we can see now that the students, these are just sample students, that I have graded with this activity. If I go to enter grades here, I can see grades for students. Great. I've already assessed them and given them feedback, and then if I go to my competency results, it's under this objective. So if I go to the structure and click on the results for this activity, I can see the completed status for each student. That's great. That's how it's supposed to be. But if I start messing with this, and so if I say either deleted this activity from my competency structure altogether, or I delete this rubric and add a new one, I'll demonstrate that momentarily, and you will see that it will get rid of all that competency data, but the grades will remain. So two ways I could do that if I really wanted to. I can either make a copy of this rubric. So if I go to copy, it'll put copy of it, and then you notice the lock is gone, so I can now edit this rubric if I want to, so I can make any changes to the, maybe I want to change the level threshold. Say I updated all these and saved it. Then I want to make sure I set the status to published, or it won't show up as a choice when I go to select the new rubric. But if I go back to my competency structure and I go to, oops, wrong one, and I select the objective where I have it associated, go to structure, click on the activity, and I switch rubrics, if I go and then save it, then I go to edit course and I go to, I'll show you the grades still remain. Let me go to Dropbox and I'll show you view submissions. My students are still here and their grades are still published. Let me go to grades. So if I go to grades, enter grades, you'll see their grades are still there. But if I go to the competency structure, and I click on the results for this activity, you'll see the status has changed to it needs to be assessed. So what that means is I either have to, through this window, go and reassess and try to remember how I graded them before, or, you know, if I made any notes to myself, and then save that, and then it will update the status for me. Or I can go back to the Dropbox and view submissions, and then I can click on the student work, and then you can see the grade is still there, but it wants me to reassess so it knows what to do with the competency data. The competency data is tied to the rubric, so if the rubric's not scored, then I don't get the competency data. So then I can go through here and reassess the student however I did before. And then go to the next one, and I'll have to do the same thing here. And then I did one that didn't meet the threshold. And then if I go back to, let's see, back to update, and I go back to folder submissions, go to edit course, competency, and go back to the activity structure. Okay, I want to make sure I have this threshold set right too, because since I changed rubrics, see I have my threshold at level 4, that means students would need to attain the highest level to earn credit for that activity, so I'm going to change that back to 3. And then if I go to the results for that activity, now I should see that the competencies tool is giving me the completed status before, but I think I graded this one a little different because this one was supposed to be green before. So let's see if that fixes it. Yeah, there we go. So I had that set up so my first 2 sample students achieved the competency and the last one did not. So that's one way you can make edits, but then you have to reassess all your students, so keep that in mind. And the same thing if I were to flat out delete this competency. So if I if I were to flat out delete this associated activity, then I would need to reincorporate it. If I delete that, you'll notice that the grades will still be there. So if I go to my Dropbox and I go to view submissions, you'll see that the submissions are still there and the students' grades are still there for that activity. So that's all fine. But now if I go back and reset up that competency association, I'll have to regrade everything again like I just did. So if I click and do that under edit structure, and then if I incorporate activities and pick the Dropbox, pick the activity, assess objective, select rubric, if I select the new one, and then require it to complete the learning objective, set the threshold, there. Now if I go to the results for that, let me go to here, structure, and if I look at the results again, you'll see that each student will need to be reassessed either through here or the submissions box in order to regain the status. So grades are saved, but competency information is not. So keep that in mind. If once you start using a rubric, you want to make sure that you're happy with it and you don't want to make any edits to it, because if you have to make an edit, you're going to have to go through every student you've already assessed and reassess them with the new rubric to get the same data. And then it's like the student's already been assessed once with the other one, but now you have to reassess them in order to get the, and it may change. You know, when you change rubrics like that, they might not achieve the same status. So you want to kind of avoid those pitfalls because you might run into problems with students and parents doing something like that. So just make sure your rubric is the way you want it when you associate it with an activity. Otherwise, you could run into issues and it will lock. So I hope you find this helpful, and good luck creating your associations. Thanks for watching.